We are going to keep the show moving forward, and we are going to go from the world of virtual to the world of the very real and the very perishable. And one of the fascinating things, one of the reasons I'm looking forward to this session is gifting exploded during the pandemic as a way of expressing togetherness while apart. And managing the supply chain around that with perishable inventory just seems like an impossible challenge. But Urban Stems got through that. So that's what we're going to unpack. That's the story we're going to dig into today. And to do the unpacking, let's bring on our moderator, Sona, one of our colleagues here at Signifyd. Come on up, Sona. I'll let you do the honors with Vivek.
Thanks so much. So hi, everyone. So by way of introduction, as Indy mentioned, I'm Sona Kagram. I am one of the senior product marketing managers at Signifyd. And I'm sure the accent's given it away, but I'm based in London, where our offices are growing in presence. So I want to start with a show of hands. So how many of you over the last month have either received flowers or gifted flowers to a loved one or a friend? Okay, that's a good amount of people in the room. That was pretty much nearly everyone. So I'll start with a confession, right? So I am a big buyer of flowers. It's one of those things that is guaranteed to bring a smile to my face, whether I'm buying it for myself or whether I'm gifting it to a loved one. And so one of the things that I was really interested to find out when I was told to moderate the session with Urban Stems is how they're looking to really differentiate themselves in a market where there's lots of choice. Clearly there's lots of players that are coming out, and trying to find a niche in that market is really interesting to try and establish. So when we take a step back and look at the gifting floral market, there's a lot of new players coming in, which are growth hacking their way into the industry, Urban Stems being one of them. And as a result of that, we're seeing a lot of innovation that's coming into the sector as well. And when we take a step back, these businesses are facing quite a few things and trends that they're trying to tackle. So things like on-demand production, things like vertical integration to try and manage their supply chains better. There's a growing need now and popularity from millennials who are wanting to gift flowers to their loved ones. So, trying to manage all of this is also, something that these businesses are tackling with. The industry is actually forecast to be worth $17 billion over the next 5 years, which I found quite impressive. That's like a 6% growth from where we are today. So, for me, it made it really clear why we're seeing all these players come into the market and why we're seeing such a surge in innovation. So today we're fortunate that we're going to be joined by Vivek Kumar, who is the Chief Revenue and Marketing Officer at Urban Stems. They've been disrupting the market since 2014 by some of the unique approaches that they've adopted to sourcing some of the freshest flowers, kind of making gifting quick and easy, and all whilst guaranteeing happiness to the customer. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Vivek onto the stage. So if you want to take a seat?
Yeah.
So Vivek, if you could just start by introducing yourself, telling us a bit about yourself and your role at Urban Stems.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. I'm Vivek Kumar. I'm the CRO at Urban Stems. And in my role, I'm overseeing several different areas for the company. I'm leading marketing, both brand and performance marketing, merchandising, so all the product development, all the products that you see on the website. I saw a lot of hands here. Hopefully you are all buying Urban Stems. If not, I won't hold it against you. Definitely not against you. We are not in the UK right now. But outside of marketing and merchandising, I'm also overseeing e-commerce, so all the site merchandising, planning, forecasting, as well as corporate gifting, which is a new area that we have started to really put some more pressure in. And then on an enterprise level, I'm also overseeing technology and analytics. So that gives me a really good perspective across the entire business and the growth and how all these different pieces connect, which I'm really looking forward to sharing with you today as well. And before Urban Stems, my entire career has been in e-commerce. I've been an e-commerce practitioner in different formats. I was at Novel Brands, which is a very well-known consumer products company with leading brand portfolio like Graco, Marmot, Calphalon, Rubbermaid. Interestingly enough, there is a parallel session happening where there is somebody from Novel who was my ex-colleague speaking. So quite a coincidence there. And prior to Novel, I was at Barnes & Noble. So I've had Omni Retail, CPG, and now a digitally native e-commerce startup. So that's a little bit about me.
Great, thank you. So we're going to go back to talking about urban stems. Can you tell us how the company's really differentiated in the market? How does it stand out?
Yeah, great question. So Urban Stems is a direct-to-consumer e-commerce startup. We are a venture-backed Series C startup, and the way we really differentiate ourselves is through our customer experience and modern designs. We really take great pride in delivering very high-quality product. The products that you see on the website is what you'll actually get. If you have been flower buyers for a while, you would know that usually what you're buying is not what you get at the end of the day, because the industry historically has been very much relying on local florists to do their deliveries. And what that does is it really, the e-commerce player loses the control at the end of the day on the supply chain. We are able to create these modern designs and deliver a really great customer experience because we are vertically integrated. So we work directly with the farms, bring all the product into our own warehouses, and then we do the shipping ourselves. So what that allows us to do is have tremendous control over our supply chain, tremendous control over our product development, which allows us to create really compelling customer experiences and also create very thoughtful gifts where it's not just about flowers, it's also about how we are able to really offer very thoughtful add-ons, which are things like chocolates, candles, candies, whatever the customer might want to add to create that personal touch to their overall gifting experience. So that's kind of how we have been differentiating. Of course, brand is our big differentiator as well. We have been really focusing on creating a superior brand experience and really talking to the modern customer and consumer of today. So those have been kind of our core pillars of brand differentiation.
Okay, and you touched on customer experience quite a bit. What role does personalization play in that?
Yeah, great question. So personalization is very, very important for us being in gifting. If you think about the sentiment of gifting, it's very personal just by the definition of gifting. The way we think about personalization is in 3 different pillars, and I think this could be actually very relevant to a lot of other businesses here as well. We think about personalization from a framework of what can be personalized on the physical product itself. So that's your physical product personalization or customization. The second pillar is really the digital personalization, which as e-commerce practitioners, we all know the personalized digital journeys on the website, in your CRM platforms. And the third and a very important piece of that also is your post-sale experience. So if a customer calls in for any post-sale support, how are you then providing them that personalized touch to continue to add value to their overall end-to-end buying journey? Because in our business, retention is really an important lever. We have to make sure that customers are coming back, and flowers being not a one-time buy, there's always that repeat purchase cycle that we have to be very aware of, and that's how you are thinking about your lifetime value versus your cost of customer acquisition. So that's how we think about personalization, and I'll give you a few examples. Like from a product standpoint, as I was mentioning, it starts with our product design and development. Our merchandising and product development teams put a lot of thought into when a customer is coming to the website, what are the sentiments that they might be buying for? Could be birthdays, anniversaries. Of course, Mother's Day and Valentine's Day themselves have a lot of nuances in terms of how we think about product development and giving that personalized experience to the customers. But to me, I think the core differentiator, as I was saying, was how we allow the customer to personalize their overall gifting experience by letting them add different types of add-ons along with the flowers or plants as well. And this has been something which is very hard in the industry to replicate because of the vertical integration, as I was talking about. We are able to create that consistent experience across the entire network, entire supply chain network that we have. So that's a little bit about physical product personalization, but it's also about the gift note, right? How we are letting the customers truly write a gift note, which gets printed with every single order and gets delivered along with the order, and continuing to think through other customization opportunities, especially as I was saying in corporate gifting, there is definitely a lot of potential for doing further personalization. And that followed by the digital personalization pieces, how we really understand who the customer is, what their needs are, what the different customer segments are, and really taking those insights into how we talk to the customer, whether it's through our email journeys, whether it's reaching them out on different marketing platforms. And that has made a material impact into our overall CRM journeys, is talking about that specific need that we have identified for different customers and speaking to them in their own language, which definitely helps drive that customer experience up, provides us with a lot of value in terms of higher conversion rates on the website and a bigger retention rate. And the third pillar, I think, is still, I would say, a work in progress, and how we connect all the customer data. We are looking at how we connect our CDP to our customer service platform, where the customer service teams would have that insight about the customers as well. So when they're calling back, we know who the customers are, and we can provide them a more personalized experience there. So it's a fascinating area. I know it's been around for quite some time now in the e-commerce space, but it's really peeling back the onion and continuing to push the envelope forward in order to create truly personalized experiences in today's world, which with the Gen Zers and how the customer is changing is becoming even more important.
So let's touch a bit on the Gen X, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you talked about the digital pillar, and I think Gen X are big adopters of digital. How are you tailoring your kind of approach to Gen X?
I'm assuming you're saying Gen Zers.
Gen Z, yes.
So it's a great question. Like, I think Gen Zers are definitely becoming more and more important for all direct-to-consumer, all e-commerce businesses. And of course, our core customer is still the millennials, right? So if you think about who's actually making the buys and making the purchases, it's the millennial audiences. But we have started to see a significant increase in the Gen Zers coming to the website. The data clearly shows that. And I think our approach to that has been, again, from a perspective of brand, it's really important. There are two things that are very important for any brand, is to remain consistent and is to remain relevant. And to me, the challenge that I'm putting back to the team is, in order for a brand to stay relevant, it's really important to start talking to the Gen Zers now. Even though we know that the bulk of the sales are being made by the millennials, that's where the purchasing power is. But if we are not talking to the Gen Zers, we are not really adding that kind of funnel into our customer file. So we have been starting to talk to Gen Zers in their own language, if you will. We are one of the first adopters in our industry of TikTok, for example. Everyone is talking about TikTok, and it's not about, we are thinking about TikTok in a very different way. For example, it's not about conversion or sales for now. It's different than Instagram, where we're spending a lot of dollars on Instagram, but it's more for direct conversion. For TikTok, it's more about the trends. It's more about the learnings and how we start to really talk to the Gen Zers, who we know will become future customers. So it's fascinating, and the differences that we can see are already quite stark, where there are different buying behaviors. Personalization is much more important to Gen Zers. Self-expression and creativity is a lot more important. So we have started to pick on some of those themes that will allow us to kind of continue to keep our brand relevant as we move along this journey.
Great, great. So I wanted to touch a bit on the pandemic. We can't get away from it. We've obviously been experiencing for the last 2 years. And I guess flowers were not immune to these supply chain disruptions during the pandemic. Can you just tell us a bit about how Urban Stems was impacted by that, if at all?
Yeah, well, the perishable supply chain is hard, with or without a pandemic. Like, it's one of the hardest supply chains that I've been involved with. I've, as I was saying in my career, been involved with many different categories, whether it was books or baby gear, pots and pans, jackets, you name it. But when you're managing a perishable supply chain, everything needs to be like clockwork. Your demand forecast needs to really align with how much you're bringing in, because if there's a mismatch, in other businesses, you always have the next week to catch up or the week after to catch up. when you're dealing with flowers, you're going to throw away those flowers. You're going to throw away some beautiful flowers, which are eventually going to hit your P&L in a negative way. So just to give this context, it was already hard to manage a perishable supply chain. When the pandemic hit, it became even more crazier, to say the least, where what happened was there was a lot of unknown unknowns, and the farms started to pull back on putting seeds in the ground. Now, it's not a factory. If you miss the planting season, the flowers won't grow. And what started to happen was that the demand started to really spike. So the demand started to spike, as Indy was saying, in the pandemic, where human connection became even more important. Things started to shift to e-commerce and direct-to-consumer businesses, and there was less supply. So it created such a massive mismatch between demand and supply. And I was, honestly, this is a true story, getting frantic phone calls and text messages from my friend right before Mother's Day. It's like, hey, Vivek, can you hook me up? I don't want to get into a fight with my wife. And
Flower guy.
exactly, I'm like, all right, I got you. So that is how bad it became, where there was like absolutely no flowers in the supply. And I think the key of how we managed, which is very relevant, again, to probably a lot of the businesses here, first, opening the lines of communication from the farms, from your supply chain source, to your supply chain teams, to marketing and merchandising. The last thing we wanted to do was continue to spend money on marketing when you can't sell enough flowers and you don't have enough flowers. So I think it's really important to think about the organizational setup in a way that allows that free flow of information in a very transparent and open way, where as soon as you get a signal that, hey, this week we are going to be shorted, you pull back on marketing and you start to really optimize your business that way. And that was a great, like, doing that in a remote environment when everyone is kind of working on Slack and on Google Meets was hard. But I think the team was set up to do exactly that, and being a startup helps, where you're a little bit more nimble. I come from bigger companies, and some of the organizational kind of setup might prevent that from happening. But that would be my one advice, is opening that communication, which really helps with the final bottom line. Some of the other things we did was on the product innovation side, where what we did was we are very true to our designs, right? What we show on the website is what we want to deliver. But if there were shortages on certain key stems, we didn't want to send that to the customer without letting them know. So what we designed was a new product, which we call Designer's Choice. And that was essentially telling the customer this would still be great designs. It would still be an Urban Stems bouquet. So you can be confident in the quality as well as the design aesthetic. But there could be a variability in stems that you will get. And that was a huge success, where like it was a win-win-win, where farms could still send us those bouquets which were off recipe, had a few stems that were missing. We were still able to send those flowers to the customer, but in a way that was very transparent. And we, of course, passed on the savings to the customer, and it was a huge win. So again, in situations like these, how do you think about product innovation and changing your process that allows to take advantage of certain challenges? And this was a great experiment where we might continue to even keep this product on because it's a great value add to all the partners involved from end to end. So those were some of the things that we did. We started to put a lot more pressure on non-perishable products on our website. We had dried flowers, which we had launched before the pandemic. And that also became a really important product category for us to kind of manage some of these headwinds in supply chain. So yeah, it's something that we are coming out of now. Things are stabilizing to some extent, but it's interesting how perishable supply chain worked in the last 12 months.
And what are some of the lessons that you've learned from that have helped you to kind of build a more resilient supply chain now?
Yeah, as I was saying, like I think the lessons is definitely open communication, thinking about the product innovation, diversifying your supply chain as well. Like, so we started to add more partners for some of our key core SKUs, so that the risk is a little bit more diversified, and continuing to think through how you can still meet the customer need by changing your internal processes. Like at the end of the day, it's really putting the customer first, trying to understand what their needs are, and creating processes and products that meet their needs.
Great. So, Vivek, one of the unique things that I've learned about Urban Stems is that you've established a subscriptions business.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, great segue here. So subscription, as I was saying, thinking about the customer need, we place a lot of focus on the customer. It's one of our core values, and clearly we started to see in our data that the customers are looking for maximum special with least amount of effort, right? That's why when you do your surveys, that was the key insight is Urban Stems is all about maximum special with least effort. And there was this need of customers who wanted to have flowers delivered to them at a regular frequency, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever fits their needs. And the aha moment was, why would we have them order again and again and again when what they are looking for is least effort? And that's where subscription comes in. I think it's definitely a product that we are adding on to our existing business. So there were a lot of learnings there. We are still kind of activating subscriptions, but it has been a huge, I would say, tailwind in a moment when cost of digital marketing is rising, in a moment when retention is becoming so much important. And subscription really hits so many of those key checkboxes. You can really manage your cost of customer acquisition by increasing your lifetime value with subscription customers. There is that unmet need that was there that we are able to meet with customers who are looking for that regular delivery of the subscription orders. And also it allows us to really have a different dynamic with the customer where it's not a transaction anymore. It's more of a long-term relationship, and you are in it together with the customer, which is very valuable for the long term of the company. So it's definitely something that we are putting a lot more pressure on. And I can speak about some of our learnings there as well, which probably might be helpful for the group. But yeah, it's really thinking through the customer journeys. What we are realizing is a subscription customer journey is actually very different than a regular non-subscription customer journey. And for any business who's thinking about adding a subscription to their existing business, it's really important to understand how the different digital touch points of a subscription journey should kind of sit along with the regular orders, because they are different. Even right now on our website, some of those flows are not consistent. They are a little bit different, which we are trying to make them more consistent. And then it's also thinking about how you can take advantage of a very well-established revenue stream from a supply chain standpoint. So we are thinking about things like shipping direct from farm. There is no need for bringing the product into our US warehouses and then shipping it here, because you exactly know at what time, at what frequency are the customers really expecting those orders. So you can start to optimize a lot of the back-end processes as well, which is again a win-win, because the customer gets fresher delivery direct from farms. There are cost efficiencies there, and there is definitely a lot more things to think about. The LTV to CAC ratios are very different for a subscriber versus a regular customer. So to me, it's definitely very fascinating when I start to really look at the differences between a subscription order and a non-subscription order, and even the customer journeys there.
So I want to touch a bit on customer experience. It's been a topic that's been coming up throughout the whole day. What are some of the ways that Urban Stems is addressing customer experience?
Yeah, I think customer experience is really this broad umbrella of many different things, right? To me, it really touches the physical product experience. How are you delivering high quality products on time and in a way that really makes it special? It's about and we all know how stressed FedEx and UPS networks were. If there was a missed delivery or a delayed delivery, especially in perishable, you are getting wilted flowers, what's your recovery process? That is a huge part of customer experience in our view. And we have made a lot of strides in terms of, again, making sure that we are very proactive with customers when there is a missed delivery. We added technology like Convey in order for us to be proactive and tell the customers that there's a delay in your shipment and proactively resolving that for them. And I think one of the big pieces for customer experience that we also launched probably around a year back is a customer insights group. I've seen so many businesses who say that we want to be customer-centric, but there are so few businesses who are actually listening to the customer, who are doing that customer listening and making sure that there's a customer voice when we are making decisions. Right? There are so many companies that would be making decisions based on just analytics, P&L, numbers, forecast, and that is absolutely, absolutely important. But how are you really balancing that with the voice of the customer? And that, I think, has been a huge, huge lever for us in terms of improving our customer experience and continuing to push that, where we are starting to really think through what is the customer impact, what is the value that we can add to the customer by making some of the decisions that we are making on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, like we can have a whole 30-minute session just on customer experience. Like it's such a great topic, but I'm glad that you asked. Like hopefully some of these points that I touched on resonate with a lot of you here. But yeah, that's kind of how we have been thinking about CX and customer experience.
Great, thank you. So we've got about 5 minutes remaining, and then we wanted to just open it up for questions for anyone in the audience. So if anyone has any questions, this would be a good point to raise them. Go on, Andy.
If you have a question, well, you can use your mic, Andy. That's fine.
I think I can project. Vivek, supply chain disruptions are just a reality.
Yeah.
Whatever folks in the room may think of climate change, at least the floral side of the business is hostage to growing seasons and missed expectations on planting volume. Mm-hmm. So as you all think about assortment, in the future state, is that evolving to have non-perishable or less perishable? Does it become more of a gifting brand over time, especially with a subscription business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, first of all, like to address your latter part of the question, we are seeing a majority of our subscribers who are using subscription as gifting. So they're gifting a subscription, which is fascinating. And that's kind of, when we were on the subscription journey, we really had to customize the platform we were working with in order to make it truly gifting. And same thing with our e-commerce platform as well. But you bring up a really good point, Indy, in terms of, like there would be definitely, we are all about human connections. Our brand mission is enabling that human connection through our products. And whatever we can do, whether it's through the strength of florals or plants, and our plants are also very thoughtfully designed and created, geared for gifting. We have gift boxes. So we are already in multiple categories, not just flowers. Of course, flowers remain our dominant category. But when we think about product development, it's with a view of that human connection lens and enabling human connection. And that's why even when we were launching subscriptions, it was truly geared towards that giftable element versus self-sense. So yeah, I think that's kind of going to be an important part of our strategy going forward. Please.
How do you differentiate yourself from all the other millions of floral websites online? And like, what's the differentiating factor, and what do you do to acquire customers because you're later in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. As I was saying, like our core differentiation is our vertically integrated supply chain that allows us to really drive a superior customer experience. So since we work directly with farms, we are able to stay true to our designs. What you are seeing on the website is what the end experience would be. On top of that, like just the power of creating this special gift through adding add-ons, whether it's chocolate or a candy, again, makes it really special, which, again, traditionally in the industry, it's not that consistent, where when you're relying on a network of 3,000 florists, it just becomes a little bit more harder to drive that product consistency. So that has been our core differentiator. To answer your second question, like, of course, we are acquiring our customers through all the regular paid channels, but also brand is very important. I'm a big believer in continuing to really focus on your brand, which drives the organic recall of the brand, drives a ton of organic and direct traffic, opens up the doors for partnerships that we have a long-standing relationship with Vogue that has been a great partner. We did a partnership with Kate Spade, and all those areas have continued to provide us a little bit of a hedge against even the rising digital marketing costs. So I think focusing both on your brand, which allows you to go into more organic and direct, as well as optimizing your paid channels like paid social, paid search, affiliates, is important. We have also decided to go a little bit more upper funnel with streaming and podcasts, and that has been very successful for us, especially around the key holidays like Mother's Day and Valentine's Day. Yeah.
You're the one with the all hands. Do you have time for one more?
Yeah, I'll take one more very quickly.
Into the microphone so we could hear it on the recording.
I was just wondering, have you seen a market increase in the number of subscriptions, or rather the interest in subscriptions in the past year or 2 years or so?
Absolutely. Subscriptions has been growing at a much faster rate than a regular business. So of course it's a smaller base for us, but there is definitely an interest and increase in just the customers who are coming to us for subscriptions.
Awesome. Vivek has to jet to a employee all hands, so let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
everyone.
Great job, moderating.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.